choice that will define the future of a region that served as the cradle of civilization and a crucible of strife.
We begin our headlines tonight in Egypt, Israel, Jerusalem, Gaza Strip, the West Bank, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Gulf states. A lion that was rescued from the abandoned zoo in Syria has given birth to a cub just hours after.
In the pursuit of a broader peace and peace with the Palestinians. And I greatly look forward to discussing this in detail with you, Mr. President.
Hi, my name is Gemma Neary and welcome to this week's edition of The Modern Middle East. Throughout the show, we'll look at the impact of conflict on Iraq, Syria and Yemen. We'll be joined by a junior doctor who voluntarily mentors refugee youth. And we'll finish with a feature travel story about a woman who got married in Lebanon. But first, let's look at what's been happening in the Middle East. We begin our headlines in the Iraqi city of Basra tonight, where widespread uprisings have left at least 15 people dead and over 240 injured. After months of sporadic protests, the Iraqi government deployed security forces to the area after demonstrators stormed the Iranian consulate and set it alight. Many protesters blame Iran's strong influence in Iraqi politics for their grievances with the country's inadequate social services, which, despite being in an oil-rich region, include contaminated drinking water, rundown infrastructure, and institutional corruption. Syrian and Russian forces carried out a series of intensive airstrikes in Idlib, which left over a dozen people dead. The air raid could signal the beginning of an anticipated government offensive to retake the rebel-held province, which came as the presidents of Turkey, Russia, and Iran met at a trilateral summit to discuss the conflict. The meeting failed to produce a consensus as Russia and Iran rejected Turkey's call for a ceasefire, arguing that military action was needed to drive militants out of the enclave. During protests at the Israel-Gaza border, 2 Palestinian civilians were shot and killed by the Israeli Defense Force, and another 30 were injured from live gunfire. In a video of one of the fatalities, 16-year-old Palestinian Abu Tayyur is seen throwing rocks at IDF troops stationed a significant distance away, and is shot seconds later while waving his arms above his head. After 5.5 months of weekly clashes at the border, 174 Palestinians and 1 Israeli have been killed. A criminal court in Egypt sentenced 75 people to death and 47 to life imprisonment as part of a mass trial of 739 people. The accused are facing charges that include inciting violence and causing property damage, which occurred during the violent clashes between protesters and security forces after the ousting of former President Morsi in 2013. The mass trial has been strongly condemned by human rights organizations, which has yet to address the involvement of security forces aligned with current President al-Sisi. Highly anticipated peace talks between warring parties in Yemen collapsed before they were slated to begin under the mediation of a UN envoy in Geneva. The meeting would have been the first direct negotiations between Yemen's internationally recognized government and Houthi opposition rebels in 3 years. However, the Houthi delegation failed to attend. The Houthis accused the Saudi coalition, who control Yemen's airspace, of preventing their plane's flight to Geneva, which was reportedly also going to be used to medically evacuate injured rebel affiliates. The American Center for Disease Control and Prevention is investigating an Emirates flight from Dubai to New York City after nearly 100 passengers reported feeling ill on board. Before the flight landed at JFK International Airport, dozens of people experienced flu-like symptoms, including a cough, headache, sore throat, and a fever. It wasn't immediately clear what caused the incident. However, one witness told the New York Times that many passengers were showing symptoms before the plane took off from the United Arab Emirates. Qatar amended their controversial residency laws to allow the majority of foreign laborers to leave the country without prior approval from their employer. The kafala system is a form of employment sponsorship common in the Gulf, where a significant portion of the working population are migrants, 90% in Qatar's case. The amendment has been seen as an effort to address worker exploitation ahead of the 2022 World Cup. However, critics have highlighted that more expansive reforms are needed to meet satisfactory working conditions. Lastly, the United Arab Emirates announced the first Emirati astronauts to be sent to the International Space Station. 34-year-old Hazza Al-Mansouri and 37-year-old Sultan Al-Niyadi were selected out of 4,000 hopeful candidates and will undergo months of intensive training before their departure next April. The UAE is striving to be an international leader in space exploration, developing a number of long-term projects, such as the creation of the first human settlement on Mars by 2117. Let's shift pace now to the focus of this week's episode: the challenging road ahead for Iraq, Syria, and Yemen post-conflict. After witnessing the devastating toll of the Syrian civil war on the country's population, the Karam Foundation launched an initiative in Turkey that provides Syrian refugee youth access to vital education facilities. The innovative space enables Syrian teenagers to acquire practical knowledge and skills through diverse workshops that are reshaping a generation traumatized by conflict into emerging entrepreneurs, engineers, teachers, and artists. The up-and-coming generation in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen will inherit the aftermath of wars that have destroyed their state's infrastructure, destabilized its economy, and fractured its society. 50% of each population is under the age of 24, but the conflicts in each country are at varying stages, and thus range in both the immediate needs and the long-term challenges that loom over the reconstruction and reconciliation process.
Because the country is not going to be rebuilt by the current generation. It's going to be rebuilt by the next generation. And unless they are given a chance and given every opportunity, it's going to be a much harder process.
Now in its fourth year, Yemen's civil war has reached a stalemate. Ongoing conflict between Houthi opposition rebels and government forces backed by a Saudi Arabian-led air coalition has produced a humanitarian disaster in what was already the region's poorest country. 80% of the population is in need of emergency relief, and a child under 5 dies every 10 minutes from preventable causes. The immediate challenge facing both Yemen and the international community is to broker a lasting ceasefire that would allow humanitarian organisations unrestricted access to the areas that need them most. An extended period free from conflict would also give the state an opportunity to implement economic recovery measures to ensure that basic commodities and services are both available and affordable to the civilian population. While it's difficult to see a resolution in Yemen's crisis in the immediate future, analysts have suggested that the civil war in Syria is beginning to wind down. Anti-government protests that broke out in the midst of the 2011 Arab Spring spiraled into an unprecedented 7-year war fueled by regime forces, fractured opposition groups, terrorist organisations, and global superpowers. However, with Russia's backing, the Bashar al-Assad regime has made significant territorial gains across the country, a trend that's expected to continue until conflict is reduced to a localised scale. Despite an apparent conclusion on the horizon, years of war have devastated Syria's civilian population and infrastructure on an immeasurable scale. The enormity of the reconstruction process will require a joint international effort, as Syria and its allies do not have the resources to shoulder it alone. One of the most crucial decisions that the country will face is where to focus the resources that they do have, such as which neighbourhoods to rebuild first and which public services to prioritise in order to accelerate the country's redevelopment. Iraq has repeatedly faced similar choices, having endured decades of cyclical conflict, including the 1980 Iran-Iraq War, the 1990 Gulf War, the 2003 Iraq War, and most recently the Islamic State insurgency. After 3 years of violence that saw militants overrun almost a third of the country, Iraq's Prime Minister finally declared victory over the terrorist organisation in December 2017. In the vacuum left by ISIL, the state will need to meet humanitarian requirements and simultaneously implement measures that encourage long-term political, economic, and social stability.
Okay, you've defeated them militarily, and now you're going to rebuild schools and water and whatever. But how do you defeat them ideologically?
In early 2018, the United Nations launched the Iraq Recovery and Resilience Programme, a 2-year initiative with a series of measures designed to immediately improve the daily lives of local individuals and communities. Focus areas include establishing anti-radicalisation support programs, expanding political participation, and promoting youth entrepreneurship. While the program can build on the partial sense of unity that emerged in the wake of ISIL's defeat, a generational mistrust in government systems and an underlying feeling of inherent injustice have also developed both within Iraq and across the region in Syria and Yemen. To transition to a stable post-conflict society and recover from the trauma of war, it's crucial to address both the overarching humanitarian crisis and the underlying social reconciliation of the population. Due to conflicts largely outside of their control, the majority of youth in Iraq, Syria and Yemen have been deprived of years of schooling and stability. However, a continued investment in education and entrepreneurship will ensure that the next generation is equipped with the knowledge and opportunity to navigate their country through the uncertainty of what's next. We have to go to a break, but stick around as representative of the non-profit initiative Happy Brain Education, Mariam Hassan joins us in the studio to talk about her passion for education and how it led to her to become a volunteer tutor for refugee youth. Welcome back. Joining us in the studio is Mariam Hassan, a junior doctor at Monash Health and the director of the Access program offered by non-profit Happy Brain Education, which aims to empower the next generation through free one-on-one tutoring for refugee youth. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Firstly, where are you working at the moment and how did you become involved with Happy Brain Education?
Yeah, so I'm currently a junior doctor with Monash Health, like you said. I'm currently working at Dandenong Hospital, completing my internship. So that's been good. I've always thought that if I didn't do medicine, I'd want to be a teacher. So Happy Brain Education's really been a good way for me to pursue my passion for education as well. One of the co-founders of Happy Brain Education, Naba Al-Fayyad, is a close friend of mine and was a year ahead of me in medical school. So she asked me if I'd want to be involved and jumped at the opportunity, and now I get to work with the Access program.
Of course. Can you tell us a bit about Happy Brain Education and how the project started?
Yeah, so Happy Brain Education has been in operation for about over 2 years now. It started when a young boy from Iraq needed heart surgery, and the aim was to raise over $100,000 for him to be able to have the life-saving heart surgery in Australia. And Naba and Amani, the two co-founders at the time, were thinking about what skills they have and how they can help raise that money, and they thought that, tutoring is one thing that they can help with. So they started with just small tutoring groups, and all of the profits would go to the surgery. And in the end, they were actually able to raise all the money, and with donations as well, for that to go ahead. So that was really exciting. And once that was so successful, they thought, well, we better not stop what we're doing, and so they continued, and now it's grown into what it has today.
That's incredible. One of Happy Brain's flagship initiatives is the Access program. Can you explain to us what it is and how it works?
Yeah, so Happy Brain Education aims to provide access to education to people experiencing all kinds of disadvantage. And the Access program focuses on refugees in Australia. So essentially what we do is we provide free one-on-one mentoring to youths of refugee backgrounds. And essentially with an aim of helping them transition to Australia a bit better and just providing extra support so that they can reach their potential. The student referrals often come from the Refugee Minor program from the Department of Health and Human Services. So case managers working with unaccompanied minors in the community can often refer to our program. We also get referrals from other community-based organisations like Foundation House or the Centre for Multicultural Youth, who are working with refugees in the community, and they can refer to our program as well. In terms of the mentors, they're usually university students, but can be anyone really, with anyone who's happy to volunteer their time to help our cause. And we're lucky to have a really passionate group of mentors on board.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges that refugee youth face in the education system, and how are they countered by the Access program?
I think there are so many challenges. I think, coming to a new country often is the hardest thing about for refugees. And I think one of our co-founders, Naba Al Fayad, she's a refugee herself, and she said that the hardest thing about being a refugee is not seeking refuge itself, it's starting life anew. And I think often we have older siblings, family members, people who we can ask advice for, who've been through VCE, the university system, and we can easily ask advice and they can give us some direction. But I think for somebody who's new to the country, doesn't know how these systems work, they're not really, sometimes might not be aware of what opportunities are available, and sometimes need that extra support to assist them with that, not only academically in terms of language barriers and things, but just as well, just to see what other support services are out there.
Yeah, just to be that shoulder, of course.
Yeah.
In what ways do both students and mentors benefit from the program?
Yeah, so we want our program to not just be an academic service. We want it to be more of a mentorship, so that they have a role model to look up to. And I think so often we have a wide age variety in terms of our students. So some in primary school, majority are in high school or VCE. And so often they need help. We can offer help with their homework, but often we focus on enhancing their English skills, their communication skills. We really encourage our mentors to help them with things that are extracurricular as well. So if they're looking to apply for a part-time job, helping them with that, helping them write a resume, thinking about differences between university and TAFE and subject selection, and giving them just a bit more of a broader perspective, and kind of broadening their horizons a bit. One of our students was very keen to become involved in volunteering, and so one of the mentors, the session that they ran for a couple of weeks was that they would go to the local nursing home and volunteer together, and obviously that was very fulfilling for everybody involved. So I think we try to have a more holistic approach to mentoring, which is very good.
And it seems to be working out.
Yeah.
Are there any students that you've mentored that have particularly stuck with you?
Yeah. I think, often, especially, when you're dealing with the unaccompanied minors and they don't have, a particular student, she, just living with their siblings, didn't have any parents here, and I think didn't really have much social contact outside of school. Would kind of go to school, come home, and I think even me just visiting her once a week and having that extra contact and really seeing the improvement in her English and her essays and her maths, and it was really fulfilling to me. And at the end of it, we became friends more than anything. And I looked forward to seeing her just to see how her day was and how her week was. And I think she craved that extra connection as well.
Like anyone would,
yeah.
What are you personally passionate about education?
Yeah, I think education is such an important tool for so many things. I think it helps to bridge the gap with any kind of disadvantage, and it can just open up so many opportunities, not only in terms of career prospects, but can lead to someone being in an influential position in society, shaping the society we live in. Not only that, I think education also is so important in fostering a harmonious society. I think it encourages critical thinking. It allows us to view things from somebody else's perspective. And it also fosters self-growth, self-awareness as well. And I think those things are so important.
Yeah. Just lastly, before we have to let you go, for any viewers that might be interested, how can they support Happy Brain or even become a mentor?
Yeah, definitely. We're always looking to expand our pool of mentors. We're lucky to have an influx of student referrals. So anyone who's interested to volunteer and has some time to spare, please email access@happybrain.org.au or find us on Facebook, Instagram, our website, Happy Brain Education. And also, if you know any students who think might benefit from the program, also feel free to look us up or email at access@happybrain.org.au. We also have a fundraising program that we're working with at the moment in partnership with UNICEF. which is kind of a broader Happy Brain project rather than just the Access program. But that is focusing on creating education camps in refugee camps. So for the youth that are in refugee camps abroad in Jordan, UNICEF are working on a project to create technology-based kind of skill services, so that to teach the youths there some technological skills that they can then use once they are eventually moved from those camps. So that's one project that we are currently fundraising for. So you can have a look at our website if that's something that you'd like to be involved in.
Of
We'd
course,
greatly
yeah.
appreciate it, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time. We're going to have to go to a break. But thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about your passion and your experience and for the work you're doing with Happy Brain. It's incredible.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
When we get back from the break, we'll share some advice from a traveller about the best things to see, do and eat when in Lebanon. Welcome back. A lot of the content that we cover throughout the show focuses on regional politics and conflict, but we also want to spend a bit of time exploring some of the beautiful destinations and unique experiences that the Middle East has to offer. So to wrap up tonight's episode, we spoke earlier with Marina, an Australian mother of two who met her husband while working overseas and later married him in Lebanon.
She's asking if you want to be in it as well.
No.
Hello, my name's Marina Earley and I am from southeast New South Wales in Australia. I live here with my family. I've got two small sons and my husband, Mohammed. I went to Lebanon quite a few times, particularly after I met Mo. We ended up actually getting married there, which was fabulous. And it was great, just fun. It was all dance and music and people and eating, it's just, they do celebration very well. You just get immersed in it. It's beautiful. Yeah. And the beauty of the country, that was not what I was expecting. The beauty, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous country. So it depends on what time of year that you go as to the experience that you have. So if you go in spring, it's all amazing flowers, just the whole countryside turns into a rainbow, it's just like, wow, this is what spring is like. And then you go in the winter and everybody's in their fur coats and, beanies, and there's snow everywhere, even from Beirut, you just look and there's the mountains, white, the streets are literally alive with energy. Lebanon is known as the Paris of the Middle East because of that really strong French influence, which is really very strongly felt still there. The Corniche, which is sort of a classic Lebanon scene, really. You're walking along this beautiful coastline with the tide pools and all the kids splashing and jumping in the water and people going for a swim because it's the Mediterranean. You can go for a swim there even in the winter because the water's still warm. Yeah. Sitting on the side, having their shisha, drinking their coffees, the loud talk, kind of like the Italian cafes, it's like lots of hand movement and yelling and shouting and, and Habibi, and, it's really just so fabulous. You can't go to Lebanon and not enjoy the food. Like, it's impossible. Is like, the Lebanese are crazy about food, and there's a reason for that. Their food is incredible. Just simple things like lentil soup and what we would call spinach and cheese triangles, but Lebanese style. Well, I am lucky in the sense that when I go to Lebanon, I stay with the family. So we do get home cooking a lot. Pretty much anyone, if you ask them, where's this or can you help me, they will fall over themselves to help you because it's just part of the culture there that it's their duty to look after you. It's overwhelming. You come away and you think, wow, what a life to be living in a country like Lebanon where, let's be honest, it hasn't been an easy path, and yet these people are so full of life and so in love with life. It's a very rewarding place to visit. Yeah.
Thank you so much to Marina for sharing her incredible experiences and advice. Visit the website below for more information on travelling in Lebanon. That's the end of this week's edition. Share your thoughts on anything we covered on our social media pages, and head to our YouTube channel to catch up on highlights from tonight and previous episodes. Tune in next week when we break down one of the core concepts of the Israel-Palestine conflict, the right of return. I'm Gemma Neary, thanks for watching and have a great night.